Hello, Prague. Thanks for the introduction. I'm really happy to be here today. Who's having a great party? Say aye. Aye. Very good. So, as already was mentioned, I'm a software engineering team lead in Berlin, working with small improvements, and you've told pretty much everything about it. We have.
Sorry.
No worries, no worries. Our mission is really to help employees grow and succeed, and we do this by helping employees receive feedback. So we have a continuous feedback platform. We help you to set up goals and do career development and so on. So if you have any questions about that, happy to chat to you about that afterwards. But today, I'm really happy here to have the honor to talk about our journey from migrating 100K plus lines of code from AngularJS, Angular 1, to React. And yeah, that's a funny undertaking, and I'm really happy to share with you two things tonight. One is our migration strategy. James already did talk about the principles and philosophy behind generally switching between technologies, so I think that was a very, very cool introduction. And we will also go a bit deeper into the nitty-gritty things of technical challenges, so really looking at code and how we could maybe make those technologies unite. So, who uses an AngularJS application in production? Say aye. Aye. Okay. Some, at least some out here. Who uses a React application in production? Say aye. Aye. Mm-hmm. Okay. Who uses a hybrid application of AngularJS and React in production? Say aye. Aye. Okay, some crazy folks out there. Let's talk afterwards. Cool. The other ones were probably like, why would you do that? I mean, that sounds insane. Yeah, to explain myself a little bit, behind that, Small Improvements, we are a product-centered company, so we don't do consulting, where you go in a project and say, you should do this and that and this, and then bye-bye. So we definitely have our own product that is growing. We are in business now since 5 years. And we started surfing the first wave of Angular, and James has introduced it really, really nicely, like building a very huge application in Angular. Yeah, and then Angular 2. What? What's that? Angular 2, okay. Yeah, okay, we built on top of that great framework, but there's a new one coming. They're rewriting everything from scratch, and we were like, okay, that sounds very interesting. So we checked it out. So the complete front-end dev team of Small Improvements visited Angular Connect in 2015. Great conference. We saw a lot of talks regarding Angular 2, but it wasn't released as we hoped, the beta. So what we did an internal hackathon to really dive into Angular 2 and the early state. The result of that was that there are very cool ideas, very cool concepts, absolutely makes sense to rewrite it, but it's too unstable for us at the moment. But as we are all developers playing around with different technology, we knew there's a new kid in town that is React. So we also experimented with React, and basically having one development team building a feature in React and Relay. And the result of that was React. Yes, that's really, really a good idea. Relay was cool, but we are missing some crucial features. We can talk about that afterwards, not part of that talk tonight. So we said, should we migrate? And we found 3 very, very good reasons to migrate. The first one is that React was very much fitting our coding philosophy. So we already had kind of a unidirectional data flow in an AngularJS application. So really kind of stateless components, injectable actions, stores to hold the state and so on. So that was really something we were very much aligned with. Next thing is you have readable, declarative, predictable components, which is something every developer likes, to be honest. And also it was designed with performance in mind. We had a lot of issues in the beginning with AngularJS scaling properly. You can read on our tech blog. We've written tons of articles and talks and everything about that. But React was designed with performance in mind. So we said, yes, I want you to migrate. And that's what we did. let's come now to the migration strategy. What did we do? We basically thought we have two options. We have A, let's completely rewrite. Option B, a smooth and focused transition. We choose B. So complete rewrite wasn't feasible at all, and I think that's pretty straightforward. Okay, so to come to the basic idea behind our migration strategy, let's look at a very nice application. So we have an application that will display comments. Straightforward, we have here application, comment list, and if we look at the actual component tree, it is looking like something like that. What we were now trying to figure out is how difficult are those parts of the application to migrate. So let's start with the application, the main component. What do you say? Is it hard, medium, or easy? Who's for hard? Yes, right answer. Application is really hard. Why is it hard? Because all the routing is in it. It's basically the bootstrapping, everything, like the whole core framework, the whole technology you're using is used in that application wrapping component. What about navigation or the comment list, like some lower level but still very heavy components? I think you guessed it already, it's more medium, so we could more or less rewrite them, but they have a lot of children already, so those are the ones we want to look at. So the children of those componentry, they are easy to rewrite. Why? Because they mostly are just displaying some data to the user or taking user input and converting them into actions or some other state of business logic change. So our strategy was based on the idea of migrating leaf first the component tree upwards. By the way, we said also that each new component or each new feature should be built on the new technology. So this was also so the regular business was running side by side, of course. Next thing is we had a lot of business logic in those Angular services, of course, so we wanted to have a migration strategy to pull them out of the Angular framework. And then afterwards, we will, if we have a lot of components translated or migrated, we can then replace the routing and tackle that hard application component where everything is wired together. We'll probably have to backport old Angular components because they might contain some business logic, something we don't want to rewrite, so we basically would need to render Angular also in React. So this is the last piece then. Today, we can look at two things. We will look at technical challenges. One is rendering React in AngularJS, which is pretty exciting. And the second one is migrating an AngularJS service. We also have the other way around, but we won't cover this today because we don't have too much time. So let's start with the first one, rendering Angular in React. No, the other way around. Confusing sometimes. So rendering React in AngularJS. Let's look at our example. We had this beautiful component, comment list, beautiful in Angular, ng repeat over those comments. Those comments are here. How are the comments getting their data? They are probably getting the data through bindings. So here goes a comment in with a text, and it can be displayed. The same goes actually for a React component. So React component has also an interface where you pass in stuff and where it can also execute callbacks, for instance, and that is props. So that sounds looks very, very similar. Let's look at code. So this is the Angular 1.5 component definition. We have the bindings, our comment. This component is displaying the comment, and it's rendering a text. Let's look at the same component in React. So that's a comment, very beautiful, simply in React. Looks pretty much the same. Okay, next, how do we render this React component to our DOM? Well, there's this pretty nice service, React DOM, we call render. We pick our component and a DOM element to render to, and so we just simply render it. So one might think, this is the Angular component. We're executing JavaScript here in this controller function. Let's try to call React DOM render there, maybe. We also have the element, so we have the DOM element actually. So we might try to call that. Who thinks that works? Say I. I wouldn't be standing here if that wouldn't work. So yeah, it works. That's actually pretty simple and beautiful that you can simply render it like that. Okay, so let's refactor it a bit because it looks a bit messy. Basically what I did is remove this React DOM render into its own function. So we pass in the element and we render our component, in this case the comment, to the element. And here, what we're doing, we are hooking into the lifecycle of our component to render this React component. Of course, we have to do that because the Angular component also lives, right? It gets updates, you change the title of the comment, and so on. So you need to re-render the React component. What we are missing now is the props. So the React component is rendered, but it doesn't display any comment. So what I did here is I've extended this render method to receive the props. We are spreading down the props into the component, in this case our comment, and on changes, we'll also call this method, this method with the props. So overall, it looks like that. Smart developer would say, you've produced a memory leak now. So if you render this React component all the time, that's pretty funny. But if Angular decides to erase your comment component, then you basically have React still pointing to that component. So second lifecycle hook is on destroy. We are actually unmounting the React component from the DOM. And this is all. This is the bridge between Angular and React. We're getting bindings into our Angular component. We are passing them to our render function. We render the comment to actually our directive or component, whatever you call it, here. This is directly the DOM element, and that's very, very handy. So that's really the nitty-gritty thing, this element 0 here. Okay, then we also garbage collected, everything fine. So I know if we look at the comment list now, it's pretty nice because this is the Angular version of the comment list. It repeats over our comments, and it has no idea that React is under that. So here it's just the thin layer, the Angular component, wrapping the React component, passing down the data, and React is taking care of rendering to the DOM. Really nice, so really separated, a clear interface between those two technologies. Yeah, so what is bothering me here? I think it's very boilerplate. So we have to write always this React DOM render and so on. So I personally really would like to think, can we make this reusable? So really having this React component somehow generated automatically that wraps a React component. And actually, there's something pretty cool about React components. They use prop types. Who knows what a prop type is? Say I. I. Okay. Prop type is basically defining what type of prop you are getting, so kind of like a small type system. So wouldn't it be cool if I could just call some magic function, hey, convert this React component to an Angular component wrapper, and yeah, celebrate. And yeah, we can do that actually. As I said, the prop types is the key to that, so we have a clear idea of how the interface to our React component looks like. So now I'm bombarding you with code. This is a very nice helper function that actually a colleague of mine, Gernot, and I have written. And it's basically really simple. You get a React component, we get the prop types out of that component, and we will return an Angular component definition object that actually has bindings. So we somehow convert the prop types to Angular bindings, and then we are doing those lifecycle hooks that you already have seen. We're calling render, and we are actually also passing the props. In this case, we have to get the props out of the Angular component into the React component. I have a GitHub repository with all the code on it, so if you feel a bit lost, you can definitely check it out later and browse around there. Okay, so this toBindings method that we saw here, it's very simple. It simply does one thing. It maps over the prop types of the React component, generates a one-way binding, returns it. So does the toProps method. The toProp method does receive the prop types of the React component and will give you the actual value of the controller. And we have it automated. Beautiful as it is, we can use it now like this. Thank you. Yes! I feel like this. So first challenge we have solved, and we have a few more minutes to discuss actually how we are getting an Angular service that you can inject into your components and migrate that to a reusable service in React or in JavaScript. So how do we do that? An Angular service might look like that. So we want to get the comments, the comment authors. And for that, we use the author service. It has a bunch of methods, and we also have some dependencies injected here. So we are using this $HTTP client here to get the authors, save the authors, and so on and so on. So that the nitty-gritty thing of that is that it has a dependency, which is also cool. But what brings you AngularJS is this dependency system for easier testing and also keeping state in those services. So the idea behind that is that we extract this Angular service into a plain JavaScript module, service, or class, whatever, so that it's completely reusable. It's vanilla JavaScript. And we also need a helper to access an Angular services an Angular service in React, because some services have state, right? They, for instance, contain a list of things, and you want to get this list of things and mutate it and so on. So we also need to have that. Let's start with the first thing. We have converted this author service pretty simply to a ES 2015 class. The only thing that is really outstanding here is that we have the constructor, and the constructor will get the $HTTP service injected here by this annotation that tells Angular, hey, please give me the HTTP service. So it looks, when we use it in vanilla JavaScript, it looks like that. We will import this service, and we will have to get a new instance of that service and be responsible to inject our own HTTP client into that. So you can use, for instance, Axios or request or anything like that that has the methods implemented that your service uses. For Angular, you can also use it. So you can start now refactoring your AngularJS application to use plain ES 2015 services or classes by simply having this class, having the injector annotation, all the stuff in the constructor, and then you simply pass in the class here. So I think that is something we should and could do right now, as James also advocated that this is a good idea, this is best practice to be framework independent. Now the last thing we are needing here is to actually get the Angular service when we are in React that might contain state. And there's something very interesting. Do you know about the injector of AngularJS? You probably know about that. You can basically also manually inject things. So this injector is a service registered on any Angular element. So you can get the injector. And the injector has one method, and it's get. And it takes one argument, it's a string, and it's the name of the service. So if we call injector.get author service, we will get the author service. So we've written a small helper function here that will basically do a thing that it gets an Angular element, gets the injector out of it, and returns you the service. What I didn't implement is the error handling, because if this is empty and so on, it's not very safe. So yeah, we need to improve this code, of course, but it's I think, enough for the example. So this is how we would use it within the React component. We are requesting this Angular helper we just written get the author service by calling, actually in this case, I'm just passing in document, and I'm getting the author service. So here we will return actually the author service. And second challenge solved. Nice. So no more time for the third one, but you can read more on our blog. So we actually are blogging on this exciting journey we are doing. Then the second part is currently in writing, so I will publish it probably within the next week, so stay tuned for updates there. Also a cool thing that I wanted to show today, but I don't have time for, is that we actually managed to get hot reloading of React components in that Angular bridge. And that's then really... okay, lessons learned. What did we learn today? The crucial thing, and I think this conference here, this ngBigParty, is right about that. It's about being a software developer, not a framework coder, not a framework locked-in guy who's really, he or she is really sad because he just can use one technology. Next thing is apply best practices across technologies. So if you feel that unidirectional data flow is something that makes sense for the front end, please take it in your pocket. And if you write another program in another language, please put it out of your pocket. Then also take the time to experiment with new technology. It's just worth it. Even if you don't use the technology afterwards, it's just interesting to get new ideas, to get new concepts. Yeah, and really take this. Also as a team, do hackathons and experiment with technology. Also companies, it's just worth it. And keep your framework dependencies minimal. That means in this case, you're practically really refactoring your Angular services to be a plain ES6 service, because then it's independent of any framework and you can reuse it anyways. And that was everything for me. Thank you for your attention and have a great party.